Welcome to episode 93 on the Live Blissed Out podcast. Did you know that family caregivers spend an average of 24.4 hours per week providing care for their adult loved one? Hello, action taker. Welcome to Live Blissed Out, a podcast where I have inspirational and informational conversations with business owners and subject matter experts to help you get the scoop on a variety of topics. Tired of hesitating or making decisions without having the big picture? Want to be in the know? Then this is the place to go. I'm your host, Marissa Houston, helping you achieve bliss through awareness and action. So let's get to it. Joining us is Jenny Reynolds, an aging life care specialist at Graceful Guidance Care Management. She works to honor older adults as they age and support and guide them on the challenging walk through later life. She's particularly passionate about helping overwhelmed family members reclaim the time and energy to stay connected to their loved ones while still getting important things done. Her specialty area is working with busy professionals who are caring for their aging loved ones who have dementia or other significant medical or mental health issues. To learn more, visit jennythecaremanager.com. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. This podcast should not be considered professional advice. Jenny, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Marissa. I'm so excited to be here.
We are going to be talking about something that I think a lot of people are going to relate to. Set the stage for us, Jenny. What is our conversation going to be about?
Today, we're talking about from coffee to caregiving and sort of getting into things that you don't know about crushing it as an entrepreneur and as a family member when you have an older adult that's needing some help and support. How I thought of this topic is that every morning I drink my cup of coffee. I'm a new mom of 2 kids, and my kids go to daycare, which is wonderful. But they seem to get sick every other hour with some cold or illness or an ear infection. And I find myself having to take a couple hours out of my week every week to take them to the doctor or take care of them. And so I generally need coffee in the morning. That's just no question.
I'm with you there.
Yeah. So when I sit at my kitchen table and I drink my cup of coffee, I think of a client I worked with, and her name is Mary. And she started caring for her mom who has dementia. And she has a 2-year-old, and she has her own business doing marketing and social media. And she's got a lot on her plate, sort of cup of coffee. And I think about how she came to me and she said, I'm just so overwhelmed. I can't go 1 week without having to greatly interrupt my day or my week to take my mom to the doctor or to deal with some new medical symptom she's having. Or because her neighbor called and said she's wandering around the neighborhood and maybe she got lost, and how it's just exhausting and it takes so much of her time and it's stressful and she didn't know where to get some help. So it was good that we were talking because I had a lot of ideas and I want to share some of those ideas with your listeners here today.
I'm so glad you shared that story. I think so many people are dealing with that exact situation, and it's that balance, right? Because you have responsibilities at every level, whether they're your kids, whether they're your job, whether they're family members. People get hard on themselves sometimes, right, Jenny? They feel like they have to be able to do everything perfectly. And when they're not, they feel like they're not adequate. We have to recognize that this is a problem and that there are some solutions or ways to get help to address them.
Exactly. People in our culture are really overextended, and it's very easy to be when you're dealing with aging parents and your job and your family or other obligations that you have. And so when people are getting to that point where they're feeling really scattered and overwhelmed, that's really when I feel like it's a signal that they're needing some help and something additional to support them in all that they're doing.
What do you feel are some things that they need to be thinking about right now that can help them build awareness and try to figure out how they can do better and balance all of these challenges that they're having to deal with?
There are 3 things that I suggest all the time. And these are services that most people don't know that are out there for their older adult loved one. But there are 3 different types of care options that somebody can get inside of their home for their older adult. And I want you to compare it to a cup of coffee. So the C in cup is the first thing, and that is a senior companion or companion. What a senior companion does is they are sort of specialized in dementia training. So they're really great working with older adults with dementia. And they can work with someone one-on-one to give the family member just some relief, like 4 hours, maybe once a week, that they come and they maybe play games with them, they interact with them, they keep them busy. Maybe they take them out for a scenic drive and get lunch. But a senior companion is very valuable and helpful in improving that older adult's quality of life and giving their family a little bit of relief. And that service runs about $25 or $30 an hour.
You would say that's the base level kind of support that they can get, right?
Yes. And so I say that's like a small cup of coffee. So if they're needing a little bit more help than what I described, it could be that they're needing a medium cup of coffee, which is the U in cup, which U stands for Unskilled Caregiver. And so what that is it's a caregiver that has a slightly higher skill level than a senior companion, and they can help with both that companionship piece and also some additional things like personal care tasks. They could help with showers or getting dressed or helping that older adult with going to the bathroom or with getting in and out of bed, that kind of thing. And so they have a little higher skill level. They also might do some meal prep or some light housekeeping for them. And the cost that you would pay for that service is about $30 to $40 an hour. But that is maybe if you're needing a little more help, maybe twice a week for 4 hours or 5 days a week for 6 hours, depending on the situation. That's another option, is that medium cup of coffee, the unskilled caregiver that you would find at a home care agency. The third option is the P in cup, which stands for what I would say this is like a whole vat of coffee. And if you're needing a whole vat of coffee because your cup is overflowing, you're overwhelmed, then P could also be a really good option. And P stands for private nurse. What a private nurse can do is they can come to your home once or maybe twice a week and help that older adult with setting up their medications in their med box or maybe in an automatic medication dispensing machine. And they can do sort of like a brief medical assessment just to kind of see what's going on, what are their symptoms, and making sure that they give some advice. It sort of saves on some of those medical appointments that you might take your parent or loved one to. And it provides some added sort of medical oversight of your loved one. And the rate for this is a nurse is probably going to be between 90 and 110 an hour, just depending on, and you can maybe get some package deals on that for the month. But I would say that's a really good service for when someone is maybe struggling with their meds or they just need some regular medical oversight because they keep having issues come up again and again. And so that is the P when you need a private nurse as an option for caring for your older adult loved one.
And it's so helpful to understand it based on the CUP because then you can really visualize and understand, okay, this is the base level, this is medium here. And then if I need a lot more support, then I know I can go to the highest level. And so it helps us all understand the options, which are very important because every situation is different.
Very true. Yes. Every situation is different. And it doesn't mean that those services couldn't also benefit an older adult that doesn't have memory issues, that is just struggling with medical conditions or struggling with challenges of aging. Those are 3 different options that people may or may not be aware of. One thing that I like to share with families is that sometimes we don't always know when we need more help. And so one sign that maybe you need to change the apple cart of how much help an older adult is getting is how are you feeling as their caregiver? So if you're their spouse or you're their daughter or son and you're feeling kind of stressed and overwhelmed and you think, oh my gosh, she's got one more appointment or I have to go over there one more time this week and get groceries or whatever that is, then that's a sign that you need some more help, that perhaps it's time to add in some help. If the caregiver is feeling a little bit exhausted, a little bit stressed and strained by this, then it's time to add some help. We always want to add in help before the crisis and before the emergency. So that's when I would challenge people to kind of start thinking about, okay, what might be the next thing I can do to support my loved one and get myself a little relief and get them some help.
If you use social media to share your message, you are a content creator. Despite their best efforts, many women content creators struggle with achieving the results they strive for. If you are asking questions like, why am I not further along in my journey? What am I missing? Is this as good as it gets? Then Ace Your Virtual Business is the community for you. We are a virtual business focus group for women centered upon action, community, and effectiveness. Join us for exclusive offers and weekly live conversations that address your challenges and receive the encouragement, accountability, and support you need to succeed in the virtual business world. To get started now, visit aceyourvirtualbusiness.podia.com. Do you know at what point we can ask for help? Meaning sometimes we stretch ourselves to the point where we feel like there's no way out. What kind of signs should we be looking for to say, okay, I think it's time?
So one sign might be if you're feeling really tired and you wake up kind of exhausted. Maybe you're not getting as much sleep as usual, or maybe you're anxious and it's hard to fall asleep because you're worried about what is happening or might happen with your loved one. Another sign would be if you're just kind of rushing all over with your schedule. So your schedule is kind of packed and you go from one thing to the next and you're helping one family member and then another one, and then you're doing your CEO tasks with your work and then your project tasks, and then got to make dinner and all these things. And if you feel like you're just rushing and you're not able to take a little time to slow down, that could be a sign. I think one other sign that maybe it might be time for you to take that step is if you start to feel a little bit resentful. So say you're doing one task for someone in your family or something for work, and you just are feeling resentful and just like, angry and irritable. I don't want to be doing this. I'm so annoyed. I'm just tired, whatever it is. And if you feel a little resentful that you have to be doing that, even though it's your choice, that's also a sign that maybe it's time to get some added help. We all feel that way sometimes. It's really normal. But I think we're not always good about saying, okay, what can I do to help myself or to help my loved one so that I'm a little bit relieved and can have a little bit more of a break or a little more space in my weekly schedule.
I think it boils down to if you've reached your peak, when you feel like there's nothing more to give. You just can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. That might be a sign to say, look, I need to talk to somebody. And in that case, then I would assume you are that person, right? They could reach out to you and have a conversation about, here's my situation and I need help trying to figure out what my options are.
Exactly. And if anyone reaches out to me, I'm happy to give you some suggestions or advice on what you're dealing with right now.
What is something that our listeners can start to do right now, an activity perhaps that makes them feel a little more confident that they can do something to address it if they're in this situation that you just described where they're unsure, they're taking on a lot of responsibilities, they feel overwhelmed? What can they do?
I would suggest that when you are drinking your cup of coffee or tea in the morning, that you start to make a list and write down 3 things that are non-negotiable for your self-care in the next 3 months. So that might be getting this amount of sleep. It might be eating these kind of foods. It might be doing your daily or weekly or monthly walk, whatever that looks like, to help you stay going at your best. And then after you write down those 3 things, I want you to write down 3 things that you are doing in terms of caring for your loved one that are non-negotiables in the next 3 months. 3 things you feel like you have to be doing in terms of caring for them and tasks that you're doing on a regular basis. So write those down. So you have those 6 things that you have to do in the next 3 months, non-negotiables. So now, as you look at that list, can you pick out one thing where you can ask for some help? And maybe that means finding a senior companion and reaching out to me to get a resource for that. Maybe that means that it's time for a private nurse to come in. Or maybe that it means that you're going to ask your brother to do one of those things on your non-negotiable list for your older adult loved one, rather than doing it yourself. But I want you to write down at least one thing that you can do to get a little help with one of those non-negotiables, whether it's one of the 3 non-negotiables for your self-care in the next 3 months, or one of the 3 non-negotiables for caring for your loved one in the next 3 months.
This is so important because it ties to the word that I use almost on every podcast, and that is awareness. Most of us are feeling emotions. Maybe we feel like we're not adequate enough, or whatever those emotions are that put us in a situation of feeling like we're failures, we're doing something wrong or not good enough as we expect it to be. By doing these types of activities, which in this case is writing things down, that awareness then allows you to look at things much more logically. Like you can really identify what are those things that are causing that frustration. Because oftentimes when we're feeling those emotions, we don't know why. We just know we're feeling it, but then we don't understand what's the cause. And then when you write it down, you're like, I see, I really dislike doing this one thing, and this one thing is taking away from these important things that I want to incorporate into my life. And so something's got to give. And if I know that it's this one thing, then I can really start to figure out who can help me with that.
Yes, exactly. And I think sometimes we just don't realize until we write it down and we think we're the only one that can do all of these things, when in reality, someone else can do some of it. And even if it's not to our perfect standard or exactly the way we would do it, but if it's going to relieve our brain and our body a little bit in those next 3 months, that it's worth it to ask for some help and to get a little bit of support with that.
Given the fact that this is exactly what you do, this is how you help people, is you help them understand what the situation is and what options they have. How do they learn more about your services and how do they get a hold of you?
People can check out my website, which is www.jennyeldercare.com. And I also have a Facebook page called Graceful Guidance with Jenny Reynolds. I like to post videos on my LinkedIn page with different information for families caring for older adults that hopefully is helpful for them. So they're also welcome to contact me on LinkedIn or check me out there as well.
I think what you do is so important because it helps people with a challenge that all of us face at some point in our lives. We all have older people in our family, in our lives that we care about, and we want to be there for them in some way. And trying to make these decisions can be very daunting and overwhelming. And so knowing that there's somebody like you on our side to help us understand the situation and look at options is really important, so that then we can be at the driver's seat. We can decide what is best for our particular situation. So Jenny, thank you for being here.
You're so welcome. It's really an honor to be with you today, Marissa, and to do the work that I do. Thank you for speaking with me and allowing me to share a little bit of information today.
That's a wrap for this episode of Live Blissed Out. Thanks for listening, and thanks to Jenny Reynolds for joining us on the show. If you have a question or comment for a future episode, all you have to do is go to speakpipe.com/LBOVM or click the link in the show notes to leave a brief audio message. If you find value in our show, please visit liveblessedout.com to reach out, subscribe, and share on social media. This show is made possible through listeners like you. Thank you. So long for now, and remember to keep moving forward.